buttons. I want justice for this girl. Well, it only is. This is a courthouse, not your home, so please speak more slowly here. I don't know if this is a court or if I want justice.
The moment Judge Eleanor Ward entered the courtroom, the room shifted. Her presence was sharp enough to slice tension, and today it felt even heavier. This was not the usual petty dispute over damaged property or borrowed money. The quiet murmurs in the gallery hinted at something far more personal. Something raw. Sophia Carter stood at the plaintiff's podium, hands clasped tightly together. She was young, but grief had aged her eyes. They looked exhausted, not just tired, but emotionally scraped. Beside her stood her husband, Daniel. His calm hand resting on her back like a quiet anchor. Across from them stood Marilyn Carter, her mother. Sophia didn't look at her once. Marilyn's posture was rigid, defiant, and yet there was a tremor in her fingers she kept trying to hide. She clutched a worn leather purse like it was a lifeline. Her eyes darted between her daughter and Judge Eleanor, a mixture of frustration and pleading swirling inside them. Judge Eleanor sat, her glasses glinting under the light as she scanned the file. She paused, adjusted her glasses. Read again. Her gaze slowly rose to the courtroom. This, she said, her voice firm and calm, is a case of alleged forced entry, violation of boundaries, and unauthorized removal of a minor from her lawful parents. She glanced toward Sophia. You're the plaintiff? Yes, Your Honor. Sophia's voice cracked slightly. And the defendant is your mother? Sophia swallowed hard. Yes. Judge Eleanor closed the file with a soft snap, the kind that signaled she already sensed this wasn't going to be simple. Mrs. Carter, she said, turning toward the grandmother, let me first be clear. Breaking into someone's home, even your child's, is not a small misunderstanding. So before we go further, I want your daughter to tell me exactly what happened from her perspective. Sophia inhaled deeply. Her throat moved as she tried to gather herself. One hand rested on the podium, the other trembled slightly. Your Honor, I came home one afternoon after buying groceries. My daughter, Lily, was asleep when I left. I was gone maybe 20 minutes. Sophia's voice wavered, but she pushed through. When I came back, the front door was cracked open. The room still. Daniel shifted closer to her, ready to step in if she needed support. But Sophia continued. At first, I thought I'd forgotten to lock it. But when I stepped inside, the living room drawers were open. The hallway closet, too. It looked like someone was searching for something. And then she stopped. Her voice trembled. Lily's crib was empty. Judge Eleanor's jaw tensed. Empty? Sophia nodded, tears welling. There was no note. No call. Nothing. I thought someone kidnapped my baby. I ran outside screaming for help. I called the police. I called Daniel at work. Daniel added softly. She could barely speak. Sophia's hands shook as she spoke. For 30 minutes, I thought I lost my daughter forever. A soft gasp emerged from someone in the gallery. Judge Eleanor turned, expression sharpening. And where was the baby during this time? Sophia didn't answer. She looked at her mother. Judge Eleanor followed her gaze, her eyes locked onto Marilyn. Miss Carter, did you take the baby? Marilyn lifted her chin. I did. Daniel exhaled sharply in disbelief. Judge Eleanor leaned back. You admit it? I took Lily, Marilyn repeated, stressing the word took like it was somehow justified. Because my daughter wasn't answering my calls. Because I didn't trust how she was raising the baby. And because her eyes hardened. And her grandmother. I have rights too. Judge Eleanor raised a finger. No, you have access when permitted. Not rights to remove a child from their home. Marilyn's lips tightened. I didn't harm her. I only took her to my house for a few hours. A few hours? Sophia's voice broke. You were gone for over 5 hours, Mom. Her voice shook, her chest heaving. And you didn't tell me anything. I was going to bring her back, Marilyn insisted coldly. But you would have overreacted like you always do. Sophia stared at her in shock. Overreacted? I thought my daughter was kidnapped. Judge Eleanor interjected firmly. Miss Carter, you broke into their home? Marilyn crossed her arms. I used the spare key. Daniel's head snapped toward her. There is no spare key. Marilyn hesitated. There it was. Judge Eleanor seized it immediately. So you forcibly entered? Marilyn looked down. I opened the back latch with a knife. It was easy. A ripple of disbelief spread through the courtroom. Judge Eleanor put her pen down slowly, a sign of simmering anger. You broke into a secured home, she said, voice low but sharp. Took an infant without the parent's knowledge. Gave no notice. Left no message. And caused enough panic that the police were notified. Do you understand how serious this is? Marilyn opened her mouth to respond, but Judge Eleanor held up her hand. Not yet. I want to hear the rest. Sophia wiped her eyes. Your Honor, when the police finally traced her car, they told us Lily was with her safe. Her voice cracked again. But I still didn't know why my mother did this. Why she betrayed our trust. Sophia looked briefly at her mother. The first time today, Marilyn looked away. Daniel spoke, controlled but angry. Your Honor, she didn't just cross a line. She destroyed every boundary we set. She put our daughter at risk, and she refuses to admit any wrongdoing. Judge Eleanor tapped her pen once. Miss Carter, I advise you very carefully. This is your chance to explain. And you must choose your next words with wisdom. Marilyn lifted her head. And instead of remorse, there was something else. A storm. I did what I had to do, she said. Because Sophia is unfit to be a mother. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Sophia's breath caught in her chest. Judge Eleanor leaned forward. Eyes narrowing. Everything shifted. Everything darkened. This case had just opened a deeper wound. One far more emotional. Far more dangerous. And Judge Eleanor was nowhere close to done. Asterisk, the courtroom air felt heavy. Thick with tension that seemed almost tangible. Judge Eleanor Ward adjusted her glasses and leaned forward. Her voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. Ms. Marilyn Carter, you just accused your daughter of being an unfit mother? Do you realize the gravity of that statement? Marilyn's jaw tightened. I do, Your Honor, and I stand by it. She doesn't listen. She doesn't follow advice. She makes reckless decisions that could harm Lily. Judge Eleanor's gaze shifted to Sophia. Her eyes, red from tears but unwavering, met the judge's. She drew in a slow breath and said, Your Honor, I planned everything carefully. Lily is safe, loved, and thriving. My mother doesn't see the truth. She sees only what she wants to see. And today, she refuses to acknowledge that her actions endangered my daughter. Marilyn's lips trembled. I didn't endanger her. I kept her safe. Safe? Daniel asked, his voice low but dangerous. You broke into her home. You removed a child from her crib without her parents' knowledge. That's not safety. That's control, manipulation, and a violation of trust. The courtroom murmured at his words, and Judge Eleanor tapped her gavel once, silencing the room. Let's be clear, Judge Eleanor said. Voice steady, the law is very specific. Biological relation does not confer the right to abduct a child. Not for a few hours. Not for a day. And certainly not under the guise of protection or love. Miss Carter, you will have the opportunity to explain your motives, but facts are facts. Marilyn swallowed hard. Her polished demeanor faltered for the first time. Her carefully curated exterior, the expensive suit, the designer jewelry, the perfectly styled hair did not hide the vulnerability in her eyes. For years, she had wielded control like a weapon. But now, standing in Judge Eleanor's courtroom, she was unarmed. Sophia's voice broke through the tension. Your Honor, my mother has always believed she had the right to dictate every part of my life. When I chose to name Lily Rose after my late aunt and my own middle name, she exploded. She refused to accept it, ordered personalized blankets and clothing with her own name on it, and created an entire narrative in which Lily existed only to honor her. The gallery gasped. Judge Eleanor's pen tapped against the desk as she listened intently. Daniel added quietly, she didn't just stop at gifts and words. After Lily was born, she refused to visit the hospital. She sent endless messages, emails, texts, phone calls, accusing Sophia of betrayal, ungratefulness, even claiming public humiliation. And 3 months after Lily's birth, she escalated further. Judge Eleanor raised an eyebrow. And that escalation was? She filed a lawsuit, Sophia said, her voice barely above a whisper, claiming emotional damages because we didn't name Lily after her. $50,000. Real legal filings. Real attorneys. And this is what led to the events today. She believes she has the right to dictate every aspect of her daughter's life, even her child's name. Marilyn flinched but held her composure. I only wanted what was fair, what was deserved. I wanted recognition for the sacrifices I made raising Sophia, for the life I gave her. Judge Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Sacrifice does not give one ownership over a child, and neither does giving birth. You cannot equate emotional manipulation or legal intimidation with parenting rights. Miss Carter, this is a civil court and your daughter is the lawful guardian of Lily Rose. Marilyn's breathing grew rapid. You don't understand. She is my blood. I have the right to be involved. Blood does not justify theft, Judge Eleanor said firmly. And involvement does not grant unilateral control over someone else's child. That is the law. You acted impulsively, disregarded boundaries, and endangered Lily Rose in the process. That cannot be excused by love or familial obligation. The courtroom was silent for a long moment. Marilyn's hands shook visibly now. This was the first time in decades she had been confronted with accountability. She had grown up using charm and intimidation to bend people to her will. But here, none of it worked. The scales of justice were unmoved by her self-justifications. Judge Eleanor leaned back and continued, softer this time. Miss Sophia Carter, tell me about the emotional impact this has had on you since Lily's birth. Sophia's voice quavered, heavy with exhaustion. I've spent my entire life navigating my mother's expectations. Every major decision, college, career, relationships was scrutinized, controlled, or overridden. Becoming a mother was supposed to be different. I wanted joy, not conflict. I wanted my daughter to feel safe, secure, loved. But even that, I can't protect her from my mother's obsession with control. Daniel placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. It's been relentless, Your Honor. Threats, guilt trips, manipulations. Emails, calls, messages, all meant to undermine us. And now, she crossed the line physically, legally, and emotionally. Judge Eleanor's expression was unreadable as she scribbled notes. She paused, letting Sophia and Daniel's words settle. Ms. Marilyn Carter, this court recognizes your history with your daughter, including sacrifices you've made. But history cannot justify violating the law or placing a child at risk. You will have an opportunity to testify in detail, but let me make one thing perfectly clear. What you did today was unacceptable. And the court will not tolerate the endangerment of Lily Rose. Marilyn's lips pressed together. Her usual rhetoric of entitlement faltered as she realized the enormity of the consequences she now faced. Sophia's tears flowed silently. For years she had carried the weight of her mother's control alone. Today, with the courtroom watching, her voice finally had space to be heard. Her hands tightened on the podium, but her posture remained firm. Your Honor, I just want to protect my daughter. I want her to grow up safe. And I want my mother to finally see that her obsession with control hurts the people she claims to love. Judge Eleanor nodded slowly. Miss Carter, in this courtroom, truth and accountability are paramount. We will proceed carefully, examining every action and motive. This isn't just about legality, it's about morality, empathy, and the protection of a child's well-being. And that, Ms. Marilyn Carter, is something you will have to reckon with. Marilyn's face paled. The veneer of composure cracked. She realized this was not another lecture she could charm her way out of. This was scrutiny, cold and precise. And she knew, deep down, that the truth would be unforgiving. Judge Eleanor's eyes scanned the courtroom. We will hear evidence. We will hear testimony. And we will uncover the full story behind these hours that caused panic, fear, and heartbreak. Every decision, every manipulation, every act of control will be revealed. Because in this courtroom, no one's story is hidden. The camera panned slowly across the room. The gallery leaned forward, captivated. This wasn't just a family dispute. It was decades of control, power, and resentment coming to a head. And every eye in the room knew that the emotional unraveling had only just begun. Marilyn shifted in her seat, the first real sign of uncertainty since the trial began. She had been the puppeteer for so long, but in this courtroom, she was no longer in control. Judge Eleanor's pen hovered over her notes. "We will proceed to testimony. But let me remind all parties, this is about truth, accountability, and justice for Lily Rose. Anything less will not suffice." Sophia exhaled, shoulders sagging slightly. She felt the weight of decades lift just enough to give her hope. This was the beginning of the reckoning. And in this courtroom, she finally had a voice that could not be ignored. Judge Eleanor Ward leaned back slightly, letting the weight of the courtroom settle. The tension was palpable, almost suffocating. Every eye was on Marilyn Carter, and for the first time, the grandmother's mask of confidence showed cracks. She had always been in control, orchestrating the narrative of her life and her daughter's, but in this courtroom, control was slipping through her fingers. "Ms. Marilyn Carter," Judge Eleanor began, her voice calm but edged with authority. "Let's discuss the events leading up to today. I want a clear, detailed account. Start from when your daughter announced she had named her child Lily Rose." Marilyn took a deep breath, adjusting her posture. "When Sophia told me she had chosen the name Lily Rose, I was shocked. I thought, naturally, that my granddaughter would carry on my name. I've raised Sophia with the understanding that family legacy is important. She rejected that, and I felt disregarded." Judge Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly. Disregarded? By choosing a name meaningful to her own family and her late aunt? Marilyn hesitated. Her mouth opened, then closed. It wasn't about disrespect. It was about tradition, family expectations. Sophia's hands clenched on the podium. "Tradition? You mean your obsession with control. The baby's name reflects love, history, and care, not an obligation to feed your ego." Marilyn flinched but pressed on. "I invested in this child before she was born. I bought personalized blankets, clothing, and nursery decorations. I spent over $2,500 on items embroidered with my name. I expected respect, acknowledgement of my role." Judge Eleanor interjected, voice firm. "You expected obedience? And when your daughter did not comply, you escalated your actions, is that correct?" Marilyn's hands trembled slightly. I only wanted to be involved. To protect Lily Rose, Sophia has always been difficult. She doesn't listen. She makes impulsive decisions. Daniel's jaw tightened. Impulsive decisions? She planned this meticulously. Lily Rose was named with love and intention. You, however, forced your way into her home. You removed a child from her crib. That's not planning. That's abduction. Marilyn's eyes darted to Sophia. I only wanted to help. Judge Eleanor's pen hovered above her notes. Help? You admitted entering their home without permission, using a tool to unlock the door. You held the child for hours without informing anyone. Help does not work that way. Miss Carter, the law does not recognize good intentions in cases of unauthorized removal of a minor. The gallery shifted uncomfortably. Even Marilyn's legal counsel was silent, realizing the gravity of her admissions. Judge Eleanor continued, voice cutting through the tension like steel. I have reviewed the extensive documentation provided by your daughter. Text messages, emails, witness statements, all detailing harassment, intimidation, and control. These are not isolated incidents. They form a pattern spanning decades. Marilyn's lips pressed together, her face pale. I was trying to guide her. Guide? Judge Eleanor's eyes sharpened. Miss Carter, guidance is giving advice, offering support. It is not issuing ultimatums, filing lawsuits over baby names, or creating fear and guilt. This court recognizes manipulation for what it is. Sophia's tears welled again. For years, I lived under my mother's control. Every decision I made, school, career, friendships, was scrutinized. Now, even as a mother, I'm fighting for my child's safety and independence. And she sees this as rebellion, not self-protection. Judge Eleanor nodded. Your daughter's words reflect a lifetime of navigating your influence. Miss Carter, let's examine your history. I've reviewed records showing 3 marriages, each ending with restraining orders or accusations of harassment. Your siblings have distanced themselves. Neighbors have filed complaints. Even your book club removed you for overbearing behavior. Is this accurate? Marilyn's voice shook. Those were misunderstandings. People just couldn't appreciate my standards. Judge Eleanor's gaze bore into her. Standards or control? You sued your own mother 15 years ago because she wouldn't fund a wedding. That case was dismissed as frivolous. You refused court-ordered counseling. You've left a trail of damaged relationships in your wake. Marilyn's eyes widened. That was different. My mother was controlling. She never supported me. Judge Eleanor's voice was steady but piercing. Control does not justify retaliation, Miss Carter, and it certainly does not justify controlling another adult's child. Patterns are patterns. You repeat the same behavior across generations. Now, you attempt to manipulate and frighten your daughter, threatening her autonomy and endangering Lily Rose. Sophia's hands shook as she handed over a small stack of printouts. Your Honor, these are the messages after Lily was born. Threats, manipulations, false reports to authorities. She even contacted Child Protective Services with claims that I was neglecting Lily Rose. It was traumatic and baseless. Judge Eleanor took the papers, scanning quickly. These messages, these actions, they demonstrate not concern, but vindictiveness, not love, but control. And they escalate to the point of legal intimidation and potential endangerment of a minor. This court will not overlook that. Asterisk Marilyn's mouth opened to respond, but Judge Eleanor raised a hand. Not yet. Let's continue. Miss Carter, you admitted refusing to visit Lily Rose in the hospital? Why? Marilyn hesitated, voice faltering. I wanted Sophia to reconsider the name. I thought she would see reason if I stepped back. I didn't want to cause confrontation in front of the baby. Judge Eleanor's pen tapped sharply. So you withheld your presence. From a newborn child, punishing your daughter for an independent decision she was fully within her rights to make? Yes, but... No, Miss Carter, that is precisely the point. Withholding love, contact, or care as punishment is abusive. You intentionally manipulated the situation to assert dominance. That is the pattern this court recognizes. Do you understand? Marilyn's eyes filled with tears, but there was no clarity, only defensiveness. I only wanted the best. Judge Eleanor's voice softened slightly, but her tone remained unflinching. Miss Carter, this court has seen countless claims of love and protection used to justify harmful behavior. Love does not demand control. Guidance does not require fear. Protection does not include abduction. You have crossed every boundary this court can recognize, both legally and morally. The gallery was silent. Even Marilyn's counsel sat frozen, aware of the severity of the testimony. Judge Eleanor looked directly at Marilyn. Your daughter sought to create a safe, loving environment for Lily Rose. You took it upon yourself to override that. And now, this court must decide, will such behavior be condoned, or will accountability be enforced? Marilyn's head lowered. She had faced Judge Eleanor before, and she knew that calm, unwavering gaze. For the first time, she realized the magnitude of her misjudgment. The courtroom, once a stage for her control, had become a mirror reflecting her own actions, indisputable and unflinching. Sophia exhaled slowly, relief washing over her, but tension still clung. This was only the beginning. The judge had seen the pattern. The evidence was overwhelming. And soon Marilyn would have no option left but to face the consequences of decades of control, manipulation, and entitlement. Judge Eleanor leaned back, glancing over her notes one final time. We will continue with testimony, cross-examination, and review of all evidence. Ms. Marilyn Carter, the narrative you've built for decades is unraveling in this courtroom. The law, the facts, and morality are aligned against you, and it is time you face that truth. The courtroom settled into a tense silence. Every person present understood that what had started as a dispute over babies' safety was now a reckoning, one that would reveal not only actions, but character. And in that silence, Marilyn Carter realized for the first time that the era of control had ended. Judge Eleanor Ward, with unflinching calm and precise authority, was about to deliver the truth. Asterisk, the courtroom was tense. Every eye locked on Marilyn Carter as she sat stiffly, her portfolio clutched tightly on her lap. Judge Eleanor Ward's expression remained calm, unreadable, but the air itself carried the weight of impending reckoning. The room was quiet enough that the faint scratch of the court reporter's pen echoed like a drumbeat. "Miss Carter," Judge Eleanor began, her voice steady and commanding. "You have spent decades shaping your narrative about control, respect, and family loyalty. Today, you are asked to account for your actions not through perception, but through fact. Let's revisit the events immediately following your granddaughter's birth." Marilyn's lips trembled. I only wanted to support my daughter. I never meant to harm anyone." Judge Eleanor's gaze sharpened. "Support does not include threats, legal intimidation, or refusing a newborn contact for months. You intentionally withheld yourself from Lily Rose to punish Sophia for a decision she was legally entitled to make. Let me be clear, in this courtroom, withholding affection as a form of coercion is recognized as emotional abuse." Sophia's hands gripped the podium as tears welled in her eyes. "Your Honor, I wanted the joy of being a new mother, to bond with Lily Rose without fear or guilt. Instead, I spent weeks defending her name, protecting her from my mother's interference, and trying not to break under constant harassment." Marilyn shifted uncomfortably. I just thought she would understand. I thought she would see how much effort I put into raising her, into making sure she had everything she needed. She owes me that consideration." Judge Eleanor's pen tapped sharply against the desk. "Miss Carter, you have equated love and sacrifice with entitlement. You have built a worldview in which financial investment, personal sacrifice, and familial legacy create ownership. Let me make this unequivocally clear. No amount of prior sacrifice grants the legal or moral right to control your adult daughter's decisions or your grandchild's life." Marilyn's hands clenched. But she disrespected me. She denied me the honor I deserved." Asterisk, Judge Eleanor's voice rose slightly, carrying the weight of decades of courtroom authority. "Disrespect is subjective. What is not subjective is law, evidence, and the safety of a child. You sent texts threatening legal action. You filed a $50,000 lawsuit for emotional damages. You contacted extended family to turn them against Sophia. You even made a false report to Child Protective Services. These are not the actions of a loving grandmother. They are the actions of someone attempting to manipulate and intimidate." Daniel's voice rang out quietly but firmly. "Your Honor, the harassment didn't stop there. She showed up at our home unannounced, rearranged Lily Rose's nursery, and accused me of keeping Sophia from her. We were living in constant fear of escalation." Judge Eleanor leaned forward, scanning the gallery. "And that escalation is what brings us here today, Miss Carter. I have thoroughly reviewed decades of documentation restraining orders, divorce filings, complaints from neighbors, even her prior lawsuit against her own mother. Every pattern points to controlling behavior and manipulation. You have repeated this cycle with every generation." Marilyn swallowed hard, her usual defenses faltering. I was just trying to protect my daughter. She needed guidance. She needed structure." Judge Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Structure? Guidance? Or control under the guise of concern? You admit to refusing visits, withholding affection, and filing lawsuits as punishment. That is coercion, Miss Carter. That is emotional manipulation. That is abuse. And it is precisely why your claims regarding Lily Rose's name are not only invalid, they are malicious." Sophia exhaled slowly, relief mixed with exhaustion as she watched her mother begin to realize the consequences of decades of behavior. "Your Honor, for the first time, I feel like someone sees the reality of my childhood and the impact it has on Lily Rose. I've tried for years to protect myself and my child from the same patterns of control and manipulation that define my own life." Judge Eleanor nodded, flipping through her carefully prepared notes. "Miss Carter, let's discuss your intentions versus impact. You may have intended to protect or guide, but the impact on both your daughter and your grandchild has been significant. Legal threats, emotional distress, and the potential endangerment of Lily Rose. The law and this court are concerned with impact, not self-perception. Marilyn's hand shook. I didn't know it had gotten so far. I thought I was helping, giving advice. Judge Eleanor's tone sharpened, a note of finality threading through her words. Helping does not include filing a lawsuit against your adult daughter for naming her child. Helping does not include false reports to CPS. Helping does not include emotional coercion, threats, or intimidation. Your perception of help does not excuse your actions. And the evidence shows a clear, continuous pattern of entitlement and control. Marilyn's face went pale, her confident posture collapsing. For the first time, she was seeing the stark reflection of her behavior in the courtroom, undeniable and unflinching. Judge Eleanor leaned forward, addressing the court directly. What we have here is not merely a dispute over a name. It is a reckoning for a pattern of toxic behavior repeated over decades. From lawsuits against your own mother to manipulating spouses, neighbors, and even extended family, your history shows a disregard for boundaries and a compulsion to control. That ends here. Marilyn's lips parted, but no words came out. Her previous certainty evaporated in the face of unrelenting truth. Your daughter, Miss Sophia Carter, has acted with thoughtfulness, love, and legal propriety in protecting her child, Lily Rose. That is her right. Your desire to control and dominate does not supersede the law, morality, or the well-being of this child. Judge Eleanor's voice was calm, but carried the weight of finality. Daniel exhaled, tension in his shoulders easing slightly. Sophia's hands, previously trembling, now gripped the podium with quiet determination. Lily Rose, cradled safely in Sophia's arms, slept unaware of the storm raging around her. But for her parents, the stakes could not have been higher. Judge Eleanor addressed Marilyn one final time. Ms. Carter, this court finds that your actions constitute harassment, emotional abuse, and unlawful interference in the care of a minor. Your lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. You are ordered to pay legal fees totaling $8,500. You are prohibited from contacting your daughter, her husband, or Lily Rose unless explicitly invited. Any violation will result in immediate legal consequences, including potential restraining orders and criminal investigation. The courtroom was silent except for the scratching of the reporter's pen and the soft intake of breath from the gallery. Marilyn's face went from pale to bright red. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words formed. Judge Eleanor's voice, unwavering and firm, delivered the final blow. Miss Carter, you have spent your life creating narratives of entitlement and control. Today, those narratives have been dismantled. Your daughter did not name her child after you because she wishes to protect her daughter from the patterns of behavior you have exhibited for decades. That is not disrespect, it is love and wisdom. Marilyn's hands shook violently. She was escorted from the courtroom, her final protest echoing in the silence. This isn't over. I am her grandmother. She can't just cut me off. I have rights. Judge Eleanor's voice rang out one last time, cutting through the echo. No, Miss Carter, you do not. Case dismissed. Sophia exhaled, collapsing slightly into Daniel's arms. Tears of relief and validation streamed down her face. For the first time, an authority figure had recognized her struggle, her autonomy, and her right to protect her child from cycles of control. Lily Rose remained asleep, unaware of the drama, but safe in the hands of parents determined to break generational patterns of manipulation. The gallery erupted into quiet applause. A rare moment of collective acknowledgement that justice clear, firm, and compassionate had been delivered. Sophia looked at Lily Rose and whispered, "We did it. You are safe. And this time, we make the rules for our family." Outside the courtroom, Marilyn's departure left a stunned silence. Social media would later capture the episode in clips, but for those present, the impact was immediate and unforgettable. The law had spoken, the truth had prevailed, and a toxic legacy had finally been confronted, and in that courtroom, one small, Sleeping child Lily Rose represented the triumph of courage, boundaries, and unconditional love over decades of control and manipulation. The courtroom had emptied, but the tension lingered like a heavy fog. Sophia Carter sat quietly at the counsel table, Lily Rose safely in her arms, while Daniel gently rubbed her back. The victory was theirs, but the emotional toll of facing decades of manipulation and control weighed heavily. Sophia's hands still shook, but this time it was relief, not fear. Judge Eleanor Ward remained at her bench, meticulously filing documents and ensuring the courtroom record was complete. Her eyes softened slightly as she looked at the young mother holding her daughter. A quiet acknowledgement of the courage required to stand up to a lifetime of familial manipulation. "Ms. Carter," Judge Eleanor said, calling Sophia forward once more. "Today, justice was served not merely in the dismissal of a lawsuit, but in recognizing and protecting the autonomy of parents and the well-being of a child. This court hopes the lesson extends beyond legal consequences. Boundaries, respect, and accountability are not negotiable. They are essential." Sophia nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you, Your Honor. I've spent years questioning myself, wondering if I was being selfish or ungrateful. Today, I finally feel understood. Today, I feel free to parent my child without fear." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on Sophia's shoulder. "You've done more than just win a case. You've broken a cycle that could have repeated for generations. Lily Rose will grow up loved and safe." Judge Eleanor nodded, her gaze moving to Marilyn Carter's empty chair. Ms. Carter's absence was telling. Accountability begins with recognition. While the law addresses actions, the true work, reflection, change, and responsibility remains hers. Without that, patterns persist and harm continues. Outside the courtroom, cameras and reporters had begun to gather. The story of a controlling grandmother trying to sue her daughter over a baby's name was already spreading online, destined to spark national conversations about boundaries, toxic parenting, and the importance of parental autonomy. Clips of Judge Eleanor's precise dismantling of Marilyn's narrative were already trending. Praised for exposing emotional abuse and entitlement with clarity and authority, Sophia and Daniel walked slowly through the courthouse doors, Lily Rose in her mother's arms. The sunlight felt different, brighter, almost liberating. They paused on the steps, taking in the moment. Sophia spoke softly, almost to herself. "It's over. We're free." Daniel smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "No, we're not just free. We're starting fresh. For us, for Lily Rose, and for the family we choose to build." Back in the courtroom, Judge Eleanor completed the final entries in the case file. She paused, reflecting on the lessons this trial had underscored. Years on the bench had shown her patterns of entitlement, manipulation, and abuse. But rarely had she witnessed such a blatant, multi-generational cycle of control, rooted in perceived family obligation and self-interest. Today, the law and morality had converged to protect the innocent and uphold fundamental rights, the right to parent with autonomy and love. Free from coercion. Marilyn Carter, meanwhile, was facing the consequences outside the courtroom. Legal orders prohibited her from contacting Sophia or Lily Rose without explicit invitation. Her failed lawsuit and public exposure of manipulative behavior were now documented and could affect future interactions with any court system. While she remained in denial about the true nature of her actions, the first cracks in her self-perception were undeniable. Her reputation, carefully constructed over decades of control, had been publicly dismantled. Social media erupted in real time. Clips of Judge Eleanor's pointed questions and Marilyn's stunned silence went viral. Hashtags like #Justice for Lily Rose and #Judge Eleanor Ward trended nationally. Mental health professionals weighed in on the case, using it as a teaching moment about narcissistic parenting, emotional manipulation, and the importance of boundaries. Thousands of adult children shared personal stories online, finding solidarity and validation in Sophia's courage to confront a toxic family dynamic. Sophia and Daniel returned home, the first quiet evening in weeks. Lily Rose slept peacefully in her crib, unaware of the storm that had surrounded her birth. Sophia whispered to Daniel, "I've always wanted her to feel free. Free to make choices, free to be loved without fear, free from the patterns that haunted my own childhood. Today, we made that possible." Daniel nodded. "We did more than win in court. We won for her heart, her future. And we did it together." Sophia reflected on the trial, the weight of her mother's manipulation, and the courage required to face it head-on. She realized that legal victories were only part of the journey. Healing, rebuilding trust within herself, and ensuring Lily Rose grew up in a nurturing, supportive environment would take consistent effort. But for the first time, she felt empowered. Boundaries had been set. The cycle of manipulation had been broken in the days that followed. The episode became a point of reference for families, legal forums, and social platforms alike. Experts dissected the case, the warning signs of narcissistic parenting, the importance of documentation, and the rights of adult children in asserting autonomy. Discussions about ethical boundaries, emotional abuse, and generational patterns flooded online communities. Sophia's story became a beacon of hope for those trapped in cycles of control and manipulation. Meanwhile, Lily Rose thrived. Surrounded by parents determined to protect her emotional and psychological well-being, she grew up with love, freedom, and stability. The lessons Sophia had learned firsthand shaped how she approached parenting, with respect for her child's individuality, empathy, and the courage to enforce boundaries, even against family. Marilyn Carter's absence left a lasting reminder: control cannot substitute for love, and entitlement cannot override autonomy. Judge Eleanor Ward's ruling ensured that justice was not just symbolic, it was practical, enforceable, and transformative. The law had intervened to protect a child and her parents from the insidious effects of manipulative family dynamics. And so, life gradually returned to a new normal for Sophia, Daniel, and Lily Rose. Courtroom drama gave way to daily routines, sleepless nights, and quiet moments of joy. The trial, however, had left a permanent mark. Sophia's confidence as a mother was fortified, her sense of self-respect reaffirmed, and her understanding of the importance of boundaries crystallized. Lily Rose, a child born into love and intention, would grow up witnessing courage, justice, and integrity in action. The courtroom had delivered more than a verdict. It had delivered clarity, protection, and a powerful lesson. Cycles of control can be broken. The law can safeguard the vulnerable, and the courage to stand up for oneself and one's child can ripple through generations. As Sophia tucked Lily Rose into bed that evening, she whispered softly, "You are free, my little one. Free to be loved, free to grow, and free to choose your own path." And in that moment, the weight of a toxic legacy lifted, replaced by hope, love, and the quiet power of truth.